Oh, hello everybody. Back again, wild inside. Well, I'm wild inside, but Robin is wild outside. And we might try and show you that very slowly so that nobody gets sick in the meantime. And we were talking just before about the energies, and people are talking a lot about the astrological energies and the astronomical energies that are happening now. Of course, all that depends on your own personal interpretation of them. So I always find it a bit hard to say, oh, it's definitely like this. I mean, if somebody's retrograde or something, yeah, I can handle that. That's okay. We can all get an idea of that. But further than that, I don't know. But I've been feeling mad. I feel as I've been catapulted suddenly into the 21st century. I know we've been here for 23 years, but it's sort of gone right in my face, and lots of work and quite a bit of overwhelm. How am I going to do all this? And you've been feeling that too, haven't you, Robin?
And hearing it from others as well, it
Mm.
just seems to be a time when everything's going on all at once,
Yeah.
both in work and personal lives for
Yeah.
people. This is what I'm hearing, and certainly is what I'm experiencing.
Mm.
That, yeah, everything is just gone crazy. I guess it's kind of like the time of year as well. Outside in the garden, everything's just gone boof. Our grass has gone boom, and our hedges have gone boom, and the flowers are incredible, and everything is just growing
Yeah.
at some, don't want to say alarming rate, but at some fast pace
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
exponentially and in all directions. And that's kind of what life feels like generally at the moment.
Yeah, it does for me too. And I was talking with my students again on Monday, and because we've just got over Midsummer, just gone through Midsummer, which I always love, and it's always amazing, except I always come out sad because it starts to get dark from the 25th of June. And that's like, oh, because I do love the really light mornings and things like that. But all of them, so that was seven of us all together, including me, had like unusual, amazing experiences over the midsummer time. And they actually really reflected into our everyday lives. And something happened that did a big change in our everyday lives. And it happened for all of us too. So I sort of set the conversation off. So, come on, what's happened for you? And once it got rolling, every all different experiences, and some that you might say were a bit to start with, but have come out good. Um, it, One of my students, her partner suddenly drops on her, literally, right before. I don't think we've got much in common. And right out of the blue to her. And so that was sort of quite stunning. So we'll it's really good when I get a group together. I'm sure it is for you, Robin. They all helped and mucked in, and we all helped her and carried her through and helped her to do her own thing, which she has. But she's come out the other side, and she's got some amazing pluses out of it. And I got pluses as well. Did anything like that happen for you, Robin?
Uh, can't think of a specific example at the moment, but that's so interesting, isn't it? How we might initially see something as the negative,
Mm.
and we are negatively wired as human beings.
Mm.
That's because it's part of our survival mechanism that we need to see the threats and we need to be aware of them and we need to address them.
Mm.
But I think we sometimes haven't evolved beyond that, maybe as a society. We just focus on the negatives. And certainly that's what I see so much of in the press. And
Yeah.
we've got that constant bombardment, haven't we, with the news 24/7 and the mobile phones and the laptops and Facebook and all of this stuff. We get a lot of negativity and a lot of fear-based stuff posted all over those, and that can feel overwhelming in itself. But I think for those of us who get curious and get compassionate and look into these things, it's all about perspective and perception.
Yes, it is.
I was just talking with a client about that earlier today, and how we can start off looking at something as that's negative. What's the positive in that?
Mm.
But when we explore it just with openness and curiosity, and I wonder what's interesting, I wonder, this is interesting, what's going on there, we can actually come out the other side with a lot of positives. And although that potentially could mean the end of a relationship, it might not. It might mean a whole new depth to the relationship, because opposites can attract. Or it could mean that is something we're going to draw a line under now, and now I can go off and find
Yeah.
a partner that I share more with.
Yeah.
And because I have a friend, and she has met somebody now that they're married now, and she and he, they just get on so beautifully, and they see the world so similarly,
Mm.
and just support each other in that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if we're too similar,
Oh, that
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 doesn't
too. Yeah.
allow for growth. But
Yeah.
this couple, they're just beautiful together, and it's wonderful to see, and to have role models like that, to see, that's what's possible in a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think my husband and I, we're very different, and I know a lot of couples where they're very, very different, but that can itself be something to spark growth
Yes.
when we're curious.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder how you see things. Wow, that's so different to me, but tell me more.
Yeah.
I'd like to understand your perspective and see how it can enhance mine,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is, I mean, this is a relationship thing. I mean, I'm very different in many ways to my husband as well, um, which can really get us rubbing against each other. But it can also mean that I'd never have thought of it like that, from both of us, which is really good. I think in my student's problem was that she never she never got anything like that from her partner, because she's very alive and sparky and, hey, what about so and so? Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Have you tried this? And he was sort of like, oh yeah, all right. And sometimes she's telling us about it, say a year ago or something, and you think, God, it's a bit like living with a wet sponge. And
Yeah.
so I think it's probably good for both of them, because she's come out of it stronger and he hasn't yet, although he dropped it. He's actually gone down more. But I think having had their experience together and now coming apart may well be quite a sparky thing for them both to grow for.
And change is always challenging, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Even if we've asked for it,
Oh,
even if we've made the decision, like
damn, I didn't
the,
do
the
that.
yeah, damn, is this what it actually means to
Oh,
to
right. No,
have this
I
thing
no,
that
no,
I
I forget
wanted?
about that. No,
Maybe I don't want it after all, or it's not what I expected.
Yeah.
And that happens, whether, as I say, we've asked for it, we've initiated the change or not. It's
Mm,
still challenging,
mm,
but it's I think being open to that, and exploring it with curiosity and compassion for ourselves, that actually I'm not finding this as easy or what I expected or any of those things.
mm,
And even to use that as something to explore, why that's interesting. Why am I not finding it as I expected? Or what is it that isn't what I expected? What is it that's different? What is it that's challenging me?
yeah,
How do I respond to that?
mm.
Why do I respond in that way? What can I shift, or how can I flow more, or whatever?
It's actually made me think of, I said, that we just passed through midsummer and that it's a sort of sad time because everything's, the going to be less light every day now until midwinter. And of course, that's quite a big change for me. It always affects me very deeply. I come up to the last 3 days before we start going back again, or the sun starts going back again, and I'm there saying, oh, it's over, it's over, it's over, and it's such a loss to me. And that's my thing. That's where it is. And as you say, it makes me think, but I know, because I mean, come October time, I shall be like, oh, I want to be in the dark. I want to be by the fire. I want to be indoors. I want to be seeing the bright January sky a bit later on, full of stars, which is so different to the sky now. And if I don't lose the lovely midsummer sun, I can't have that.
Yeah.
But I still grieve for it every year.
And that's okay.
Mm.
Because it is a loss. It is a bereavement, a grieving
Yeah.
sense. And that's historical as well, because our ancestors needed that light. We don't so much. We have electricity now, and we've had oil lamps and all those things. But years ago, centuries ago, millennia ago, we
Yeah.
really, really needed that light. And it was how we told time. And, you know, it had a kind of a bigger significance in our calendar. And I feel the same when it comes up to midsummer. There's a part inside of me that's going, oh, but I remind myself when you were a child, you hadn't even started your summer holidays yet.
No, exactly. Yeah.
The best of the summer is yet to come. We hope. It's not always guaranteed in the UK, but the generally warmer, drier weather comes
Yes.
comes during the summer holidays,
Mm.
and that's yet to come. We've got another July, August, probably September. September has
September,
been pretty
October
good in the last few
here.
years.
Yeah.
That's a
Mm.
whole 3 months. And by then it's ready to go into October and the
Yeah.
inner world anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, it's that just supporting ourselves through that little hump.
Yeah. And I think to celebrate it, because I'm in Midsummer, the longest day, I mean the celebrations that go on now, even in the 21st century, there are lots of Midsummer celebrations, and even if it's a little personal neighborhood party or barbecue or something like that, we do celebrate that loveliness. We do celebrate that longest day. And then, and we move into the next part of life. But I think these changes, and people notice the sun changes, like midsummer, midwinter, and the two equinoxes. They probably notice them more than the other four that I celebrate a lot. And they're so useful. I love having the 8 seasons of the year. And you come out of midwinter and everybody just feels, the beginning of January and the first couple of weeks of January, it's so often we get this sort of down feeling. And then I look forward to the 1st of February, which is Imbolc, which is one of our quarter days. And I think snowdrops. It's going to be snowdrops, because snowdrops are 1st of February. And they always come around then still. And it's like, there's the first one just sticking up. And it's almost like you get a sort of hope thing happen to you.
It's that sense of promise, isn't it? Which is what Imbolc is all about.
Yeah.
That holding just about to burst forth.
Yeah. We're ready. We're down in the roots. We're down in the ground. We're working on this, and then, woo, here I come. And perhaps for me, I wish we did work with the seasons and work with the light and everything much more. I think we'd be a lot happier. I don't live in a town though any more than you do, so we're not sort of suffering traffic and street lamps all the time. But I mean, I wake up with the dawn and I start getting drowsy when it's dusk. I may stay up for another hour, but it's sort of like, right, nearly bedtime.
But you can feel your body going into the sleep's coming now.
Yeah.
Working towards that rest period.
Yeah. And then in the winter, I don't wake so early. Again, I still wake with the dawn, but it's like my body says, no, you're not going to wake up till 7:30 till the light comes in the window. And you get the first pre-dawn light, and then oh yeah, okay, I'm here. And I wish we did do that much more, because I think it'd be so much better for us.
Going with the natural seasons and the daylight and all the rhythms of life that we evolved alongside, and they're still part of us.
Yeah.
And they're still a part of our makeup and what serves us well and supports our well-being, as is getting out into nature.
as it is. And you know, my internet won't work outside, otherwise I would go outside because it's beautiful out there and I've just been out there. But can we just can you just slowly take us around the garden, Robin?
That's the edge of the house there. And how much you can see past me.
Yeah,
You can get a sense of the trees.
yeah.
And I'll see if I can turn it around. I'm not sure how much you'll see with the direction of the sun.
It's like you're in a little forest glade there.
Yeah, we kind of are. We have an acre and a half of woodland here.
Lovely.
So
Yeah,
that's the edge of that you can see there. We're
yeah.
right on the edge of the Brecon Beacons National Park.
It's beautiful up there. It really is lovely. Yeah,
We are very, very fortunate where we live.
yeah, yeah. And I think when people do get into this, and I've known, I'm sure you do, people that, you know, you take them out there and they go, where's the street? You know, where's the next house? Sort of thing.
Too much
And they're
space. We're
worried.
your neighbours.
And I mean, you can't see any other house from me. Well, you can with great difficulty, but you don't. And I'm actually I feel really part of the world around me and the place I live in. And yeah, I've lived 25 years in London. So, you know, and I did actually enjoy it then because I was a different me. But I still found that I was doing the waking up thing with the dawn. And I expect a lot of people would say, well, you know, that makes work really difficult because you've got to get up before it's light in order to get to work on time. And work says start at 9 o'clock or whatever time it says. And, you know, when you had to go there,
Particularly across London.
well, you don't see much of it. At least I didn't see much of it because I was on the tube.
Yeah.
You know, you come out in the dark, you dive down a hole, sit in the dark.
Yeah.
And
My
come out
mum
the
always used to say that when she was working, because she worked at a hospital,
mm,
and it was a big square sort of building,
mm.
and she was right in the middle. So there were no windows because
Yeah.
she was on an inside room
Oof.
where she was surrounded by other rooms.
Mm,
So no outside windows, all unnatural light.
mm,
And so she would get up in the morning in the dark. She would drive to work in the dark, go into this windowless space,
mm.
come out in the dark in
Yeah.
the evening, drive home in the dark.
That staggers me to. I mean, Hereford Hospital, which I go to 2 or 3 times a year because of my consultants there. And they've got lots of inside rooms that don't have any natural windows in them. And it's like, why are you building hospitals with no windows? And I don't know whether it was the same for her, but in Hereford, they've got lovely long corridors that you used to walk down that have floor to ceiling picture windows with a bit of garden outside, and all it is a corridor. Well, we could have managed a corridor in the dark. Why aren't those windows for the patients who need the light, who need for the doctor's consulting? So you're going in there for, you know, whether it's an ingrowing toenail or oncology or something, you don't want to be sitting in the dark. I mean, my consultant has a room that has no windows. And I'm going in there talking about, you know, whatever's wrong with me or right with me or whatever. But it would be so much nicer if we had a feel that we were still connected with the outside and I wasn't sort of 200 feet underground, which I might as well be.
Yeah. And you think these are people who they need their well-being and their vitality more,
Yeah,
most of all.
yeah,
They are the ones with the highest need of that.
yeah.
So why are we doing things that
Away from
deplete that?
yeah.
And you have this kind of stereotypical hospital food as well.
Oh God. Mm.
Should I not start on that one?
You may please talk about it. I mean, my husband brought me my food because I
Yeah.
literally could not eat it. So, you know, he'd come visit every day when I was in for operations. And he'd bring me my food and he'd bring me my milk because all you were getting was this sort of totally watered down white water, white liquid with no taste, anything else. So, being me, of course, I managed to say, no, I'm having this. But yeah, hospital food doesn't help you.
By and large, there are exceptions,
Mm.
but generally speaking, it's not that fresh.
No.
And it's difficult. I know there are challenges when you have to cater for a large number of people. It's always challenging because weddings are the same. Wedding food sometimes, by the time it gets to the last table or it's overcooked or whatever.
Mm.
I've been to some great weddings. That's not to say it's always the
Yeah.
case, but when it's a large number of people and you have to travel that food some distance because the wards aren't right next to the kitchen,
Mm.
it is a challenge.
Mm.
But still, I'm sure there are ways to improve it. And I know they've done projects on that because there have been television programs where they've explored it.
Yeah. And who's the amazing Cockney bloke chef? Because
I don't watch. It's
uh,
not Jamie Oliver or
Jamie
I don't.
Oliver. It was. It must have been 15 years ago, and he sort of said, "Okay, I'm going to work in, I don't know, Charing Cross Hospital for a month. I'm the lead chef. I'll do all the buying. I'll do the whole thing." And he did. And he did it within budget, within the hospital budget. And it was all fresh. It was all fresh food and it was all freshly cooked. Like you say, it might take a little bit of time to get it down to the last ward. But it tasted like food. It looked like food.
Sadly, it's not. That sounds very simple, doesn't it? And it works on a television program and it works on that one project. But having seen the inside of some institutions, by which I mean things like social services.
Yeah, I know.
And I know social services and local authority organizations that not only do they have a budget, but they have to have approved suppliers because they have to have service level agreements and stuff set up so that I knew one place where if they broke a plate, there was an Asda almost next door, and a plate replacement would be 25p. But instead, they had to go to the approved supplier where they had to pay pounds.
Yeah.
And that adds up.
Mm.
If you were replacing a whole set of crockery for whatever reason,
right.
or if you were buying food,
Mm.
but you had to go to a specific supplier, it's kind of like when you're at the airport, they can charge you what you like because you're a captive audience. You can't go anywhere else. You're not allowed to bring your own stuff in.
Yeah.
Like you can't bring your own food or drink onto a flight, really, can you?
No, you can't.
So if you're going to buy your water at the airport, in the shops, once you've gone through the check-in and everything, it's a lot more expensive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because they can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're an approved supplier, it seems it works the same way.
It does. And possibly it'd be a really good idea if a lot more people knew this, because then we might be able to sort of say, we need to change this system.
Yeah.
But
if only
they won't do it unless there's a lot of support that sort of says, you're going to change it.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
And
we're not paying our council tax or whatever.
That's the thing, isn't it? That we forget that we are the masses, we are the bigger number compared to those in government.
Yeah.
And their support depends on us.
Yeah.
So if we were making decisions consciously and in an informed way, rather than just following along with what we've always done,
yeah, yeah,
then maybe things could change.
I think they would. I mean, I'm remembering back a long, long way, but there was ages ago, this would be in the 1970s. There was a whole thing about supermarkets and factory farmed eggs. And somehow we all managed to get our act together and say, no, I'm not buying those eggs.
And that's all it takes.
Yeah.
It's like with the end of, I know it hasn't completely finished, but the end of slavery was a small minority. And there's a number, square root of 1 or something, I can't remember what it's called, but a specific number. And that's all you need. It's not that many, really.
No.
And then you can just get a critical mass.
Yeah.
Once everybody, well, it doesn't have to be everybody, but once a certain number of people say, right, I'm not buying those eggs. I want these kind of eggs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes me think, you were talking before about getting up with the dawn and
Oh
going to
yeah.
bed at dusk, and now talking about paying our council tax. The good life
Yeah.
was ahead of its time in many
Wasn't it?
ways. And
Acre. Yeah.
Tom Good said to Barbara, let's live with like the birds do. Let's get up
Yeah,
with
I
the light
remember
and
that.
go to bed
Yes.
with the
Yeah.
dusk.
Yeah.
And then they had a whole big kerfuffle around that, which
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
the whole hilarious thing of the comedic series.
Yeah.
But also Margot Ledbetter, the next door neighbour,
Yeah.
she went along to the council and said, right, you haven't done this with the roads, so I'm not paying that part of the council tax, and you haven't collected the bins, so I'm not paying that part.
I
And this,
remember
this,
that
this,
too.
you can
Yeah.
have that much.
Yeah. 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 And
And
it's
she was just so
no,
strong in
shocked.
her position
Yes.
that the poor guy behind the counter was just he couldn't talk back against what she'd said because she made a very good
Yeah,
stated her position so clearly.
she did. And somehow or another, I think we've really got to get to being like Margot again and sort of saying, no, it's not happening. And no, I'm not going along with it. And no, you can spout as much waffle at me as you like and excuses. The answer is no. And come back with the old phrase, what part of no is it you don't understand?
It's that thing of assertiveness is just being, I'm going to state my case and I'm not going to get upset about it. I'm just going to state it.
How it is. Hmm. Yeah.
And that is how it is.
Yeah.
And no matter how many times you tell me your story,
Mm.
I know it's a story,
Mm.
I'm going to tell you my truth.
Mm.
Because if it's an institution, it is a story.
Oh, it is. Yes.
And if it's a bod behind a desk like that poor guy was, it's something they've been told to say.
Yeah.
It's not them, it's the
No.
institution.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And if he doesn't say that, he's out of a job.
Yeah.
But okay, there's all that choice as well. Maybe you don't go into a job that is making you do that kind of thing, but we're not going there. But even so, it isn't the person behind the on the end of the phone or behind the desk who is doing it. It's the institution. And yeah, we've allowed it to be there.
But we have the voice. If we look into and explore and get curious about how we can exercise that and how we actually choose to exercise that on a conscious level.
Yes. And I think that is so important. And you probably have this with clients, I do. Part of what you're doing is trying to get people to this assertiveness that they can sort of say, no, I'm not buying into that. And they come back, and I hear it from myself if I argue with somebody, oh, be reasonable, Ellen. And you sort of go, can you translate that? What you mean by that, please?
Yeah.
Because actually it's a load of the BS. And I am being reasonable, but you don't want to go along with it. So you're trying to put me down. And again, it's this kind of learning what is going to happen because of the institution. The institution is fighting for its life. If you're arguing with it, it's going to fight you.
Which I take often, or do my best to take, as a good sign.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If they are fighting against, if they're fighting back, they know feeling threatened.
Yeah, they know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that they're trying to run away. Because I mean, if somebody comes to you, certainly if they come to me and they've got, Ellen, that doesn't make any sense. I'll sort of go, oh. And if it doesn't, I go, no, you're right, actually. It doesn't, does it? What should we do instead? And that's when, because I'm there in my own power, and I'm not feeling threatened because somebody's argued with me and that I might have got it wrong. This is a regular occurrence, at least.
I might have. But it's that thing that you were saying about, but what do you mean by that? And getting curious. And for me, it's often about questions, not saying, but exploring. And well, tell me your perspective on that, because maybe you've seen something that I haven't.
Yeah.
I don't follow the news and I don't follow politics, so that's very possible.
And what do you mean by reasonable?
Yeah.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I've got my reasons. Therefore, I'm arguing from a place of reasons.
Yeah.
if you mean reasonable by, well, go along with me and stop arguing. No, I'm sorry. That's not my translation of it.
And also sometimes I think when you drill down, it's not go along with them as an individual, it's going along with what society has told them that they've bought into for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And they are then feeling, whether it's about fitting in.
Yeah.
And I need to be a part of this tribe. So I'm going to go along with what society says, and society can be very persuasive. So I've followed those arguments, and I think that I'm just going to go along with that. I may not have questioned it, but I'm going to go along with that, whereas I'm questioning it.
Every bloody moment, yes.
That often isn't popular.
No.
So I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that too. Talking as a group I'm part of, we get together on Tuesday evenings, and very much that was coming up this time, that so you don't agree with somebody, well, say so, because it will spark a lot of conversation. This is a group of people who are largely up for that, and
because it depends on how you do it, doesn't it? You don't have to be confrontational.
No, you say,
you can just,
no,
I don't see it that
I'm
way.
not getting that. Tell me more. No, I'm not with that. What did you mean? And let it come out, but actually be able to say, no, I'm not getting it. No, I don't buy that. What's the point of that, or whatever? And being the other person being able to say, well, I'm seeing it like this. And as you said, something new comes up. And if it's with a group of people who are used to questioning, it's lovely, because they very often, they all go, hey, actually, we need to do something completely different from what any of us have said.
Yes, we need to go off on a completely different tangent.
Absolutely. Monty Python,
but also
sorry.
it's how we question, and sometimes those why questions can come across as quite confrontational. So finding just gentle ways to, oh, that's really interesting. Can you tell me more about that? Or can you explain your perspective on that a bit more? Because I'm just not quite clear. Or
sometimes the what, saying what instead of the why, rephrasing your sentence. So you're saying, what was that about? What happened there? What did you feel when you said that? What were you meaning? Because I'm not getting it. And the what isn't as confrontational. There's something about why. It's partly the tone. Why did you do that? And I mean, who hasn't been a child? So why did you do that, Ellen?
Oh yeah.
Oh, shrink. And I think we need to consider that.
And even instead of why did you do that, something like, well, what was your intention? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What were you aiming for when you did that? Because when we can understand somebody's intention, we can see perhaps that there are similarities between us. Just they approached it differently. Their intention may have been very much the same or very similar.
Yeah. And that is so important, but it requires, to get anybody to come out of their comfort zone, out of their shell, is really hard work, isn't it? Because what's out there? Is it you back to the, what's out there? Am I safe? Are there any tigers in the trees,
And that's where, for me, it comes back to the safety, which is where being curious instead of confrontational can really help.
Yeah.
How can we help that person to feel safe with us, safe enough with us, to share what their intention actually was, what has impacted on them, and what's made them think that way? Is it because they don't feel safe? Is it because they want to fit in? Is it because that's what they've been told? Do they actually agree with it?
Or do they dare not dare to say that they don't?
Yeah, and maybe they do, and that's fine.
You just reminded me of a lovely, funny thing that happened on the weekend. It's warm. We've got the door open, and hear the birds. The cat runs in and out, and we've got three. Mummy squirrel had three babies this year, And they're so cute. They're about half her size, but they're very beautiful. They're totally curious, and they're not very frightened of anything. And we don't chase them or do anything to them anyway, so they shouldn't get there. But I just came out the door yesterday, and one of them actually ran over my foot. I didn't even see it was there. So it rushed out of the bushes and ran over my foot, and I didn't fall over, thank God. But what happened on the weekend was one of the baby squirrels, they were chasing around outside, and one of them ran in through the front door into the front room. And it's like, oh, there was me sort of going, oh, there's a squirrel in. Heck, we don't want it upstairs. Shut the doors quickly. And there's a squirrel going, and he stopped. And the cat was in the room too.
That was what I was worried about.
Yeah. Well, this was really interesting because my cat was a rescue, and she was very, very nervous, but she's been with us for nearly 4 years now. And this is my place. This is it. I'm okay here. This is fine. And so she jumped down off the chair where she was asleep, and the squirrel had stopped. And she did this. And the squirrel went, and then put his nose too. And eventually the two of them touched noses, and they were still for 10 or 15 seconds. And then the squirrel went and out the door again. But she didn't go for him. And, she wasn't hungry. He wasn't threatening her in any way. He was just, what the hell are you doing in my room? You don't come in my room normally. And the squirrel was going, where's the hammer? Where's the hammer? And they actually, because baby squirrel hasn't learned to be afraid of people. And
cats, evidently.
No, because she will chase them every now and again, but it's playful. She's not really after them. And touch of nose. Yeah, you two are both secure in your environment where you are. You're content.
And it's so lovely when we see animals being very natural about that. And quite often you'll see that cats do that to horses. Yes. If there's a cat on a stable yard, and you think that horse, the size of the horse compared to the size of the cat. Yeah. And we had a dog that was staying with us last week because its owner was away in Ireland for the week. And he came up to the fields with me and met my horses, and he was doing that. You big thing, but I'd love to say hello to you, because he's just a big, soppy, gorgeous chocolate lab. And the horse was doing the same back. Yeah. Who are you? And I haven't seen you before. And what are you doing in my field? Yes. And
yeah.
And it's interesting because the dog that lives here with us, she's much higher energy, and the horses are very alert when she's around. Whereas when this other dog was around, they were kind of like, yeah, you're fine, you're welcome, you're not doing anything that we feel is not necessarily threatening or challenging, but just, we have to be, because your energy is high, our energy is high.
Exactly.
But because his energy was low and gentle, and he was very grounded, so were they.
Yeah. And that happens. And I mean, I know you have this with animals, and I do too. And you want to take the dog to the vet or something, and he or she doesn't like it, and you're worrying because the animal needs to go to the vet, but you mustn't show that. So you can end up with this tension inside you, which is actually worse. And you have to, if you can manage to do this before you even start, it can mean a bit of a process. I have to do this with the cat. So I'll drop myself right down. And then I can go along and I can touch. She doesn't like being picked up either. I can go along and get her. And I am so far down that she's in the crate before she's realized what's actually happening. And if I get it wrong, we've had it for the day.
There's no cat. She's just disappeared. It's a famous thing amongst vets. They're people phoning up saying, sorry, I have to cancel my appointment because the cat's disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah, we know that. Yeah.
Used to that one.
It is indeed. but it is very much this thing. I've helped people, and they, oh, I can't make my dog do anything I want. I said, well, you stop trying to make it, it'd be a good start, but let's leave that one. And it's a lot that they're worrying, they're fussing, they're on it all the time. And it's like, come down, come down, come down.
There is no time pressure. There is no, it doesn't matter if they don't do it.
No.
Hold an intention, hold an image of what you'd like them to do and invite them to do it and make it fun.
Yeah. And also just be oozing, I love you. This is absolutely gorgeous. I love you. Hey, how about we do so and so? Would you fancy that?
Yeah.
And you're just calm because you're calm inside, and not like there you are worrying, will I be able to get the cat, will I be able to catch the cat, will I be able to put the cat in the crate, whatever. You're just like, if I'm not, I'm not, and
yeah.
I'm going to be right.
Does it really matter at the end of the day?
Usually it doesn't, and if it does, probably the cat's in no position to run away anyway, so you're okay. But it works with horses. I mean, we do it with when people come on retreat, and Kim and I take them to the horses, and it's just watching them as they suddenly realize that they haven't got to go up and stroke the animal and talk to it once. They just stand, and they just stand still. And don't call the horse, let the horse come to you. And it might take 5 minutes, but they do, and then you can see the energy dropping out of them. It's really lovely, isn't it?
Seeing that when somebody or an animal just lets go of the tension, lets go of the need, and instead just allows, invites, waits to see what will happen.
Yeah. It's a thing we probably all could learn.
We all have it within us. It's just whether we've had the environment that has enabled us to express it, been encouraged to express it, or sometimes been encouraged to shut it down, particularly around that kind of sense of connection with animals, because animals don't talk, animals don't have senses.
Yeah, they don't have emotions, they don't have feelings. This is an automaton, a clockwork cat that you don't even have to wind up.
But there is a sense of that being quite woo-woo. And certainly my friend that I was talking about earlier with her husband, she was somebody who as a child communicated with animals very naturally and thought that everybody did it.
Yes.
But then over time and people reacting to her ability to do it, she realized that wasn't the case and that it was frowned upon and seen as being weird and even threatening and scary. So she learned how to turn it off. And she then realized this was impacting on her well-being. So she went on a journey to reconnect with it, which is what she's done. And now she's an amazing artist and she co-creates with the animal themselves. Has amazing work. But it's so interesting, isn't it? And we were talking about birds earlier, briefly before we went live as well. So in relation to that, we had a bit of an incident here this morning because a bird flew into the window of the door that was right next to me, and I heard this bang. It wasn't too loud. Bang, and then thud. So I very nervously, I didn't know what I was going to find, opened the door, and there was this bird lying, not looking too healthy at all. So I scooped it up. It was a beautiful great tit, and it was just kind of lying in my hands. And it was sort of opening and closing its beak and opening and closing its eyes on alternate sides. They weren't working together, they were working on alternate sides. So I just sat there and held this bird and shared love with it and sent healing to it. And over about 15 minutes, it very gradually started to kind of put itself back together. So it kind of straightened itself up a bit and its wings were still hanging slightly. So it put its wings on its back where they're designed to go. And then it kind of took a bit longer doing nothing. And then it put its head up and it kind of was doing these little kind of twitches, or something was like a buzz went through its body. And then it turned its head and looked up at me. and just stared at me for a good long period of time, and then just flew away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just because I had concussion last year. I can't remember if I mentioned it here before, but one of the horses knocked me over, and I ended up having to go for a CT scan and all the rest of it. And I remembered what that was like. So I thought, you poor little thing,
Yeah.
you've obviously just given yourself quite a bash against that window.
Mm.
I know what you're feeling when you can't quite get your head back together again, and you just need a moment.
Mm.
And you just have to check yourself through and realign all of your, your connections, rewiring or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Just take whatever time you need.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting looking in awe at this beautiful little bird, because I could see all the little filaments of its wings, and I was just, oh, you're so beautiful.
Yeah.
And then off it went, and just how it sat there with it didn't seem to be afraid, it wasn't shaking,
Mm.
and how it turned and looked at me
Mm.
and just seemed to feel safe, and how I could feel its energy change
Yes.
from being a bit kind of, I'm out of it, I'm well out of it, to I'm coming back together, I'm coming back into the present moment, I'm beginning to get my head back
I remember
to
this.
balance.
Yes.
And then, oh, you're up there and I'm down here, and oh, okay. And off it went.
Yeah. Yeah. We get the same thing because we've got big windows in the living room, and particularly with the youngsters, who are sort of like getting their acts together about where anything is, and
Yeah.
or they're having a chase round or something like that. Yeah, wham. And going out there's I've had this experience too. You pick up this little bird who is actually not horrendously injured, is going to live, and they just sit there, and you're just holding them, and you get the chance to look at them and feel them. And one thing always does me is the feel of the little claws against your
Yes.
skin.
Tiny little feet. And for
I
me, it was the little eyes,
Yeah.
because they're so that I could see as he began to come round, and his eyes were brighter and clearer, and you could see that he was seeing, he wasn't a bit.
Yeah.
And how he looked at me, and just that tiny little eyelid,
Yes.
because it was so small, and you think, how can something be that small?
Yeah. It's even more so if you actually get a blue tit or a wren, because I mean they're even tinier.
Yeah.
And you've got
We
this.
have a wren that lives here, and he comes up and down the rail of the fence here, and we have lots of little blue tits, and they come to feed,
Yeah.
and they are the bravest. They'll come first.
They're fierce.
Tiny little thing.
I've seen them chase off a great tit or a robin or something, and robins can be quite fierce.
Oh yes.
This tiny little thing, it comes in mind you, the best one was the wrens that we had was in previous house down in Hereford, and had two ginger cats, one small, literally like that, and one Maine Coon. The little one was his sister, so they weren't pure because she was short haired, but she had exactly the same colouring and markings and everything. And she was bright as a button. And he was sometimes a little bit, one sandwich short of a picnic. And he did some amazing things. But he would go up and down the hedge patrolling for things. And we have great big hedges like you. And there was this one little wren, and you know how they often nest quite low in the hedge, and he was coming near her nest. It's like, yeah, and this little thing, and they're only this big, and this is a living great Maine Coon, and meow zonk through him, meow zonk. Oh my god, mum,
I'm being dive bombed.
and she's so brave. He wouldn't probably have had her. He's more likely to have her if she was bouncing around in front of him, because he'd sort of think that perhaps he should. But she was so brave, because no, I don't care what. He must have been 50 times as big as her.
At least in weight and mass as well, because they're so light, aren't they, little birds?
You hardly know you've got them, because I mean hollow bones and everything as well.
Yeah.
But no, they're wonderful. We've got a lot of babies around now, particularly the sparrows. They've fledged early, and they're just amazing, and they're completely nuts.
I went into our barn yesterday and I discovered that we have a couple of nests there, those beautifully constructed mud nests.
Yeah.
And I hadn't noticed, I'd seen the bird go in and out, the parent go in and out, but hadn't noticed any activity from chicks or anything. And then I looked up and there are all these little heads with their beaks. You know the way the yellow beak, you just see this big gaping.
Yeah. And the little row of beaks, sort of a little row of thorns along the edge of the nest. Yeah.
Yes. Just sitting with their heads. And then every so often they'll go like one of those Muppety things. Just
yeah. Oh, we've got that in one of my barns, which is my gardening shed. And last year we had 4 swallow nests in there, and we've got 2 definitely. We may have all 4. We're trying to count them. There's a place we can sit opposite and watch birds going in and out and seeing what's happened. So we knew there was at least 2 nests in there. And also I put a wheelbarrow full of stuff underneath, and of course it's completely covered in swallow poo.
Well, that was how I discovered them, because that's where I had some hay for the horses, and I thought, what's that on top of, in the dark, you know, the shadow, there wasn't a light on in the barn. I thought, what's all, oh, I know what that is. I know where that came from.
Yeah. I've got a trail cam, and I put it up there last year and got some lovely shots, and I must put it up in there again and see if I can get some more from there, because there's a couple of places I can tie it, which it can go straight to the nest and see the bird going in, coming out, and swooping around, and that's so amazing.
Magical.
Aren't they? Yeah. Well, how are we doing? Is that a place to end?
I think it has drawn to a natural ending point.
I think it has. So swallow summer to you all, which is an old one. It's lovely, isn't it? And yeah, we are going into the very height of summer. So we'll hope that it doesn't get too hot, but that we have lots of nice weather.
Yes.
Which would be good. Yeah. So we'll see you next month.
Yes. See you next month.